Time for the Sunshine State Showdown, covering every top sports story in the state of Florida, from South Beach to the state capital and everything in between. And now, without further ado, your hosts, Brandon Kravitz and Zac Blobner.
Welcome in, folks, to the Sunshine State Showdown, covering all the biggest sports topics percolating inside of the Sunshine State. We will captain your ship today. I am your skipper, Brandon Kravitz, alongside the MJ of the Bay, the Sultan of Stream. That right there, my friends, is Zac Blobner. We're on air all across the state of Florida, Orlando, Miami, Jacksonville.
Dude, whoa!
You can find us streaming iHeart, Facebook, Twitter. We are digitally advanced on this show. Still to come, we're going to get Michael Lubitz's thoughts on Ryan Fitzpatrick saying that he's willing to take Tua under his wing, but had some other interesting things to say as well. I've got the podcast clip for you. We're going to play that in a matter of moments. Zac, I spent an inordinate amount of time yesterday researching Michael Jordan with the Washington Wizards. I don't know how often
you tweeting a lot of clips out and stuff. I was like, what is Brandon doing?
Yeah. That's one thing that has come out of the Jordan Bulls documentary that is now over that I did not expect to see happen in my personal life. This sent me down more rabbit holes online than anything in the history of the internet / my life. And yesterday it was all about the Wizards. What happened? Why wasn't the story told? If it was told, what would we have found out? I mean, honestly, ask yourself this. Like, this happened after the Bulls, yet without even seeing that 10-piece documentary, you remember way more about his time with Chicago than DC. In fact, you probably couldn't tell me one rock-solid moment where you really remember Jordan playing with the Wizards. The announcement, the time that he played, and then how he left. I mean, we're big sports fans, Zac. We got a show. I didn't remember any of it. And so
I certainly don't either.
Exactly. I mean, isn't that crazy?
It's funny. You know what I remember most from him as a Wizard? Or the All-Star, because he played in All-Star games still when he was there, right? Like, I remember him being in All-Star games and playing with a lot of the younger guys. Like, just
T-Mac and Kobe and stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I don't remember him necessarily in games as a Wizard, but I do remember him playing in All-Star games because you still got to see him around some of the other guys that obviously are more fresh in my mind when it comes to the NBA because they've played more recently. I mean, look, I certainly don't forget that he did play in Washington, but I couldn't tell you one memorable moment.
So do you want me to give you my 3 biggest takeaways? And I'm not saying these are the biggest things necessarily.
You did all
but
that work yesterday. You're damn right. I want you to tell me what you've been up to on YouTube and Google and all the other sites.
The 3 things that I learned that surprised me the most, where I went, no way. Okay. One is that, so he was the president of the Wizards prior to deciding, you know what, I need to play basketball again. And the
Kwame Brown,
not even
he's
Kwame,
the reason they drafted Kwame Brown.
Kwame Brown is he's actually like the one thing I do remember from those days with the Wizards was that terrible decision.
That was Jordan's guy.
Right.
He wanted him.
But do you remember who their coach was? The year before Jordan decided I'm going to play basketball again, and Jordan brought in his boy, Doug Collins. Doug Collins was the coach of the Wizards when MJ.
I don't remember.
It was Leonard Hamilton.
No.
Yeah. Isn't that
Get
nuts?
out.
Yeah. Florida State basketball head coach Leonard Hamilton. He fired Leonard Hamilton and then came back to play and brought in Doug Collins. And Leonard Hamilton coached 1 season with the Wizards. They won 19 games. They were god awful.
Did he go to Florida State right after that?
I think so. I mean, yeah, because he's been the coach there for like 20 years. So it would have had to line up that way. It was 2000. Yeah. So that's
like when you saw the clips from The Last Dance and like John Calipari was coaching, you're like, wait a sec. I know he coached in the NBA, but it's another thing to see him actually coaching in the NBA.
Exactly. So that one kind of floored me. I think it's interesting. I looked at the rosters that MJ played with and wow, those are some bad teams. But some of the names on there were interesting.
He was the one in charge.
I know.
He's the one that picked the guys he played with.
And imagine that happens today. Like LeBron becomes an executive and then decides, you know what, I need to scratch the itch and I need to play. He's not going back to play with some bum team. He's going to go back and play with superstars. MJ went back. There were no stars on the Wizards. Jerry Stackhouse was the closest thing they had, but he wasn't like a full-blown superstar. So they had, but the interesting names that are on this that are going to make you go, huh, really? Ty Lue. So Ty Lue played with MJ and then coached LeBron. That's a very short list of names. I can say that.
And he got walked over by Allen Iverson. That's really a claim to fame.
Yeah. So that guy, I mean, he should have a 30 for 30. Christian Laettner was on the team, so they hooked up again after winning gold in 92. And Brian Russell was on those teams. The guy he pushed off of. Yeah. Brian Russell was on those teams. Yeah, so this kind of stuff, I'm just like, what?
Off. There's momentum there, but that's not what the show is about today. Yeah, that's wild to me. Yeah, it's like you said, it's a rabbit hole, man.
Yeah, and then so the last one that I thought was really, really cool, and honestly, I don't remember this. Our brains were in such a fog at this time. Think about when he decided to come back. The season starts in October for the NBA, and Jordan comes back in 2001. A month prior to his return to basketball was 9/11, and he donated. He made $1 million that year playing basketball because he just said he didn't care. He wasn't playing for the money. He actually played for free. He made $1 million. His salary was $1 million. He donated every penny of it to 9/11 victims. So he played for free that year.
Is he the only NBA player in the history to ever get a season under his belt for $0 for free?
I would think so.
I wonder. You would imagine he would be, right? I mean, that's as big a part of a legacy as anything else. That's got to be like a trivia question on a Thursday night at a local Irish pub somewhere.
There you go. So invite me out if there's a bar out there and you want me to host MJ with the Wizards trivia. I get you covered. A late start to the opening round. Zach,
wasn't the opening round.
Oh no, man, that was just the appetizer. I could go MJ with the Wizards. They should ask me to do the 30 for 30. I did so much research yesterday.
At this rate, you just did it.
I got more info up 969thegame.com if you want to check it out. Ryan Fitzpatrick was on the What's Next podcast with Eric Wood, the former center of the Buffalo Bills. They played together in Buffalo. And Ryan Fitzpatrick had some interesting things to say. I took a snippet out. This was an hour-long podcast, and because I care about making sure we deliver you the best and the brightest here on the Sunshine State Showdown, Zach, I listened to the entire hour of the podcast this morning. Not all of it was good, but when you got to about 16 minutes left in the podcast, this is what I found. I got you 2 minutes of Ryan Fitzpatrick talking about what he plans to do with Tua and mentoring the youngster.
But with them drafting Tua number 5 overall, do you instantly start pouring into him, or do you take more of a, hey, watch how I play, watch how I run this deal, and then one day maybe you can take it over?
Well, I think part of it is they have to take a back seat and have to watch. They have to watch how I operate. Not to say that what I do is perfect, but there are going to be a lot of things that they can pull from me that they like, and there's going to be some things they can pull from me that they don't like and say, I don't want that. But I think I have enough qualities that Miami has seen that they like, and they would like another quarterback to have in them. The other thing in bringing a new guy in that I always try to impress right away on these guys is, like, I am here. Again, zero ego. Like, I have so much knowledge. I've made so many mistakes in this league in terms of dumb decisions and throws, and I've learned how to prepare. I've learned so much about offenses and defenses and the way that guys operate. Ask questions. Like, I'm an open book. Ask me whatever you want. And so sometimes it's up to the younger guy to – courage might not be the right word, but have the courage to come up and ask questions and to not feel like he's a bother or a pain in the butt. And I just try to be open and honest with everything that they want to talk to me about, because I talk to my wife about this all the time. When I'm done playing football, like, if I exit that world and don't either do what you're doing or transition into another role around football, I have so much knowledge in my mind that I've built up that, like, then just goes to waste, So I want to pass on all these experiences and lessons and things that I've learned to younger guys, because when I came in, I had the same thing. I had guys that taught and showed me the way. So I'm really excited. I'm excited that they drafted him. Like, I'm excited because in watching him play at Alabama, like, he looks like he's a pretty dynamic talent. Just in meeting him a few times, like, he seems like an unbelievable kid, great head on his shoulders, like, says the right things, wants to do the right things. So, like, for me, I'm his biggest cheerleader right now, but I also want to be out there playing. You know, I also want to be on the field, and that's kind of why I'm still doing it, because I still enjoy playing the game.
All right, there you go. That was a snippet of Ryan Fitzpatrick on the Eric Wood podcast. I think a lot of people are going to take from that. You could go one of two ways with it. And I've seen the headlines out there already, Zach, I've seen the Ryan Fitzpatrick wants to compete with Tua. I've seen the Ryan Fitzpatrick is going to be Tua's biggest cheerleader. But I think that's why it's important when you have the time to do it, to deliver the context properly. And that's what that clip does. I mean, that's Ryan Fitzpatrick knowing his role. But look, he's still a pro that has fun. You can see it all over his face when he's playing. The guy has a blast playing football out there. And the moment Tua becomes the starter, that's probably it for Ryan Fitzpatrick's career as a quarterback that gets meaningful playing time. So he's not just going to let Tua have it. I also like what he said about, I've got this knowledge, but I'm not just going to give it to you. You have to want to get it. And I think that that's the right attitude to have. So what I heard from Ryan Fitzpatrick, I think that his head's on the right, it's in the right place.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, listen, I was fortunate enough to be around Ryan a little bit when he was here in Tampa. You know, he was supposed to be mentoring Jameis Winston, a much different situation because Jameis had already been on the team. He had already been past those first, 3 years in the league where he is learning and leaning on veterans heavily for advice. At that point, that's what we believed, at least. And I thought Ryan was perfect to him, and Ryan even had to step in at one point because of the suspension that Jameis had 2 seasons ago now and play those first few games. And like you mentioned, like, he's a kid in a candy store whenever he's on the field. He has a passion for the game. It's really fun to watch him. And look, as much as a roller coaster as his career has been, there's been some really fun games and fun parts. I mean, week 1 in New Orleans, that season that I'm talking about, he went out there and lit it up, and they won. The Bucs started 1-0 against the much better Saints team because Ryan Fitzpatrick was hitting guys, Deshaun Jackson, Mike Evans. He was bombing it. It was great. And that's what Ryan Fitzpatrick brings to you. It's actually kind of interesting to me, though, because I do think he's a great presence for Tua, for sure. I almost wonder if a guy like Josh Rosen would actually be able to pull more from Fitzpatrick, because Tua, you're hoping comes in and is like a Dan Marino, right? Like, he's the answer to the franchise's questions. Fitzpatrick's never really been that. Like, even when he was starting in Buffalo, as you mentioned, I know he started in New York.
Yeah, that was the most support that he ever got as a starter, was in Buffalo, for sure.
But he was never like brought in as like ideally the franchise's savior, like Tua is. So when you look at a guy like Josh Rosen, who is inevitably going to be on a third team in the very near future in some capacity, you wonder if Fitzpatrick can mold him to be more like he's been and emulate what Fitzpatrick's game has been. And again, not that Tua can't draw things from him, but look, at the end of the day, if Tua ends up becoming the next Ryan Fitzpatrick, everybody loses, right? Like, Josh Rosen, on the other hand, like, that's a great career. If Josh Rosen can find a way to mold himself into the next Ryan Fitzpatrick at this point, I think that's a good move for him. It's good for everybody. And again, because of my experiences around Ryan Fitzpatrick, I would lean more on the cheerleader aspect of what he said and not the I want to be out there aspect of what he said. He's never going to get to the point in a competition, especially in a quarterback competition, where it's, aggressive, right? I've never seen that. I've never heard of that from him. Harvard educated type of man. He knows how to handle his business in the most politically correct possible way. And again, with that being said, the most passion you see from him is when he's playing in an actual game. And for it to be pretty much isolated to just that, Brandon, that's a good thing for him and for Tua and for that organization, that quarterback room.
I would imagine that you listen to what he said and read between the lines. If he says that I've got all this knowledge, but these young guys have to want to get it, is essentially, I'm paraphrasing what he said. That's essentially what he said. You know that he's experienced that in the past where he's wanted to help, but he feels like the guy that's younger that's playing with him wasn't necessarily asking for that help. And I don't think it would shock anybody if the guy that he would be talking about is either the one he dealt with in Tampa or the one that he's dealing with now in Miami, whether it was Jameis or Josh Rosen. It sounds a lot, honestly, it sounds a lot more like Josh Rosen. I don't think Jameis's
I
problem.
can see it being Rosen.
Jameis's
I mean,
problem has never been not wanting to be great. It's not being able to get out of his own way. But Josh Rosen is kind of pompous, and I could see that with him.
Yeah, and Rosen's been that way since UCLA. I mean, his Twitter handle is the Rosen one. We've heard some of the cockier comments come out of his mouth, and again, that was before he even got to the NFL. Now, I'll be honest, like I loved that aspect of him. You know, him and Baker Mayfield and that like cloth of quarterbacks that were coming out for a few years there were just confident dudes, man. I loved it. It has not worked out well for those guys for the most part, though. On the same hand, now I will tell you, without a doubt in my mind, that he is not referring to Jameis, and I've had a lot of criticisms and critiques of Jameis Winston. You know, he leaned on Ryan in the best possible way, and they had nothing but glowing reviews. I've seen them. Jameis has went up and played with Ryan's kids and been very friendly to them, and they have a really good relationship. So I know for a fact that that's not about Jameis. Now, it might even go further back. We don't know. I mean, again, he's been around for a very long time in this league.
Yeah.
But I would not be shocked if it was Rosen. I can tell you emphatically it was not Winston. Him and Fitz are good terms, good buddies.
You know, you touched on one other thing that of the hour that I listened to. I listened just to get to that part that we aired for you guys. The one other part that I found really interesting that I think as football fans and analysts we don't think about, and that is a guy like Ryan Fitzpatrick. Think of all the different teams he's played for, that he's started for, and you mentioned it. He's never, for all the teams, he's on like 8 or 9 at this point, have never brought him in to be the franchise guy, which means they've never built an offense around their quarterback. And the guys that are brought in to be the man, the offense is tailored to what they do well. Ryan Fitzpatrick has had success with a number of different teams and has never has never once had an offense that was tailored towards him. He had to tailor himself towards the offense because the other way around was never going to happen.
You can't tailor an offense to Ryan Fitzpatrick's style. How do you tailor an offense to a guy that goes all the way up, comes all the way down, and then just keeps going back and forth?
But wouldn't that explain part of the ups and downs for Ryan Fitzpatrick, is that he's always had to ride the wave of whatever system he's in. And it might not be best suited to his talents. I'm not saying his career would definitely be any different, but it's interesting when you think of that. Like, those guys are never given the utility that other guys like Aaron Rodgers, Josh Allen, Deshaun Watson, and Lamar Jackson are given, where it's like, all right, you're the man. We're going to find the pieces around you to make it work the absolute best. All right, I've been wanting to get to this all week long, and it's Hump Day. Let's do it now. Shaquille O'Neal versus Hakeem the Dream. This almost hit pay-per-view in 1995. The story behind that and the commercial next.
Welcome back to the Showdown with your hosts, Brendan Kravitz and Zac Blobner.
What? Did we just become best friends? Yep.
Time for some added insight. Let's head to the Sunshine State Hotline.
I know when that hotline blink.
Let's chat with our boy down in South Florida, Michael Lubitz, on air, 940 WINZ Miami Sports. Luby, I hope that your week is treating you well. We just heard a clip several minutes ago on this show of Ryan Fitzpatrick on the Eric Wood podcast saying that he's going to be Tua's biggest cheerleader, but he wants to compete. What are your thoughts when you hear that coming out of Ryan Fitzpatrick?
What else is he supposed to say? Look, he's a longtime quarterback. He's been around. He's moved around the league. He came in last year and it was like a back and forth between him and Josh Rosen to one point where Flores, the head coach of Miami Dolphins, says Josh Rosen's going to be the quarterback for the year and has a horrible. It goes in. Rosen never really sniffs the starting nod the rest of the season. So, and Fitzpatrick ended up leading the Dolphins to 5 victories. So of course it should be his job, and I wouldn't expect anything less from him. You know, the contend for the job. But he also, being a Harvard graduate and being a guy who got one of the highest, if not the highest, Wonderlic score ever, realizes where he is in his career and realizes if the Dolphins are drafting quarterback 5th overall, that he is the future of the franchise. So it makes sense. Look, he's going to go for the starting job. He wants a starting job. But if he doesn't earn it, he will be backup guy that can extend his career and probably work his way into coaching. It's a smart way to take it, and it's exactly what I would expect of him. And I hope it's what happens this upcoming season.
Yeah, another snippet from that same podcast where Fitzpatrick talked about Tua and kind of guiding him. He mentioned explicitly that it's up to the rookie quarterbacks, the new guys coming into the league, to come up to him and ask him for advice and ask him questions, Luby. And me and Brandon both kind of agreed that clearly at some point in his career that didn't happen with somebody, a younger guy, because he sounded like he was speaking from experience. Any truth to the fact that could have been Josh Rosen with him last year?
That's interesting, because we know Josh Rosen to be a kid that is really bright, really well-spoken, but he also, with being bright and well-spoken, he put his foot in his mouth a lot of the time when he was in college with the NCAA because he didn't pull punches. And it went to the point where they did, not his teammates. His teammates always loved him, but a criticism of him was that he sort of was arrogant and cocky. It would make sense that he'd be the guy that, he says all the right things when he does pressers, but he was drafted top 10. He was traded for a 2nd-round pick. Ryan Fitzpatrick is an older dude that's had an inconsistent career, so he would think it's his job. So maybe he felt entitled. I mean, it does seem to have the air, his story, since before UCLA. I mean, he was a 5-star guy who was the best quarterback in the country coming out of high school. He's always been a kid. He's a kid that doesn't need football. They always questioned his love for football. I'd never heard stories about that, but I'm not going to lie. You never really saw them be chummy. Like, you never really saw him sitting on the sideline with Fitzpatrick picking his brain and vice versa. So it makes sense. I look, and I get where Fitzpatrick's coming. Like, if someone doesn't want my advice, why would I give it to him? So I'm hoping Tua picks his brain. I'm hoping that is him opening to come and pick his brain, because the guy's been around a long time.
Yeah, and he's probably going to start some games at the beginning of the season at the very least. I would imagine that's at least the plan. I do like the fact, though, that he's talking about this situation like I'm looking forward to competing with him rather than I'm looking forward to playing while he's on the sideline watching me because he can't play and he's hurt. So at least if you're reading between the lines, that's something to be encouraged by, that he has the feeling like this is going to be a competition early on, which is what I've thought from the beginning, that he's actually, Tua is ready to play. That's what it sounds like. If you're reading any more into it, then maybe you should.
Well, no, and it's funny. I had you on my mind, Mr. Ryan Kravitz, when I was reading it, because I was like, I get it, the competition, quote unquote, because Tua's going to be there whenever they do practices, whatever the kind of practice there are. But again, I was the one that I'm under the impression Tua's not going to start for most of this season and maybe gets run at the end of the year. The way it's worded in most of the articles I've read and most of the things I've heard is that it's an open competition from day one. Fitzpatrick's expecting it. And I don't think he pulled it out of thin air. Again, he's a very bright guy. He's been there now. Flores wanted him there. Flores is very happy with how he played. I would assume they have a relationship. Someone told him this. So, and he's probably talked to Tua because, again, he is the one that's willing to be cheerleader guy. So someone said, look, Tua's in there. So it's like, well, okay, maybe Kravitz is right. Maybe they really are that confident in his health that it is not an issue. Like, I didn't think it would be an issue to draft him. I thought it would still be lingering enough. Like I said with you guys a couple weeks ago, it'd be lingering enough that why not be smart? This is a year that's all over the place with Corona, COVID. On top of that, the Dolphins are coming off a 5-win season, so there's not high expectations. Why not take it slow with Tua? But like one draft, I didn't even drafted him. And Ryan Fitzpatrick's talk sort of seemed like he's ready for Tua to be starting material from game one.
Yeah, I mean, eventually you guys will start listening to me. I don't know what's taking so long.
It's funny because Luby,
he wouldn't be there if it was up to Mr. Herbert.
Luby, what are you doing? He would Brandon spent weeks telling us how Justin Herbert was the pick, not Tua, and now you're going to listen to him?
Smoke screen.
You know better.
Smoke screen.
Everything you say is hot air, my friend. No, that's probably too aggressive. I take it back. Not everything, Brandon. Okay, so I do want to kind of look and continue to look at this situation. First of all, just to kind of throw my 2 cents into the mix, I think that when it comes to this quote-unquote open competition, you want every guy on your roster to strive to be a starter, to get into the game. If you just flat out tell Tua, hey, watch, like, don't do that. He won't reach his true potential, in my opinion, unless he is competing in his mind, physically and out there on the field and doing everything he has to quote unquote be a starter. The question I have for you though, Luby, is for the Dolphins in general, you would imagine their ceiling, their map, the roster they have, if the breaks go their way, the fumbles bounce into their team's hands instead of the opponents. Does Ryan Fitzpatrick or Tua give them the best chance to win in 2020?
I would say Fitzpatrick because he took them to 5 wins we didn't want, 5 wins last year, and that was after being abysmal at the beginning of the year. So you're thinking they brought in a good amount of free agents, veteran free agents, guys that have been successful elsewhere, that the ceiling should be higher for them this year. And if you're doing the bounces go right theory, we've seen Fitzpatrick have bounces go real right, and he's been on teams that won 10 games. I don't see them being that, but if they can be a 6-win team, why can't they be an 8 or 9-win team? I would think their bar for this season, I know we put people on these shows, this season, I would say is better with Fitzpatrick. But I haven't seen Tua. None of us have seen Tua. So I'm going off of, I think no matter how open a competition it'll be, quote unquote, in camp, because it has, like you just said, Zach, it has to be. Like, you can't, well, it's like what Flores said last year. We can't tell our guys to think. Well, duh. No one said you tell the players to think. It's in the front office.
Right.
You tell the players to play. The coaches don't know. We saw the year before with Keim in Arizona. Like, coaches aren't guaranteed the next year after a king job. So, of course, the players and the coaches are going to go for it. It's the execs who tank, which is what the Dolphins did last year. I don't care what their success tells you. They were tanking. They were openly tanking. But the players played, the coaches coached, and they did a good enough job to get 5 wins. I don't know what Tua is going to be. I still, from a organizational standpoint, see them taking Tua slow because you're not going to take a chance with your franchise quarterback. But if he's kicking ass in preseason, it's like Baker Mayfield versus Tyrod Taylor, and it lost Hugh Jackson his job. All preseason, anyone who watched any Cleveland Browns that year, Baker Mayfield was a better quarterback. They played better with Baker Mayfield, but he went with Tyrod Taylor. Yeah, that didn't last long. He was out of a job. Tyrod Taylor was out of a job. He's in Los Angeles with the Chargers now, and Baker Mayfield is a starter. So I think Fitzpatrick being the veteran, they have a better chance to win. But that's going because I don't think Tua's going to start.
Wow, you guys are nuts. You guys are crazy. Do you hear yourself?
Hey, you focus on the Chargers, Brandon. Don't worry about what we're talking about. Okay.
Oh my God.
That feels like Fitzpatrick's the better guy to win now.
Maybe for the first three, I'll give you the first 3 weeks of the season. From then on out, it's got to be Tua.
Okay,
if you're really trying to win.
Brandon, you're telling me that Tua is their best chance to win in week 4, his first NFL game ever.
Like for the remainder of the season, yeah. Yes. Yeah, from week 4 on. You know, Ryan Fitzpatrick gets hot starts, and he finished last year strong, so I'm okay with him starting the first couple of weeks. But I know what Ryan Fitzpatrick's ceiling is. I don't know what Tua's ceiling is. Tua's ceiling could be the sky's the limit.
What's Fitzpatrick's ceiling?
9-10 wins and then collapse in round 1 of the playoffs. That would be the best of the best. He's not doing any better than that.
Collapse. If you're saying his ceiling is 10 wins and that could potentially get them into the wild card and into the playoffs, then anything can happen. I mean, if the Dolphins can go from 6 wins in a top 5 pick to a playoff berth with Ryan Fitzpatrick, it's worth it.
My thing is, okay, you think Tua, and I'm the one that was on the Tua train the whole time. I'm the one that put out the video screaming like a child when they drafted Tua. Okay, I'm the one that said the whole time when people question they need to go with Tua, he's there, they're going to go with Tua, and they did. I still, first year, Peyton Manning's talked about it. Peyton Manning said the interception record his first year. Like, I don't care how good you are. Like, you can't expect 10 wins out of a rookie, especially if he's not starting the first year.
Right.
So that's my thing with Tua. Yes, long-term, of course, it's Tua. Year one, I agree with Zach. Year one, I think Fitzpatrick can get you 8 to 10. I don't think Tua's getting you 8 to 10 wins year one.
All right. Well, I'll just leave it at that because I'm sure we'll debate this until the end of time or September or October. There was Devontae Parker news, Luby. Michael Lubitz joining us, 940 WINZ Miami Sports. Devontae Parker beefing with Michael Thomas. How dare Michael Thomas take a shot at our boy Devontae Parker? Am I right?
There you go. Well, the whole thing's weird to me because, first of all, Devontae Parker is talking from experience. Like, he has played against Gilmore, and he played really well. He got one of his better games against what many consider, I don't, but many consider the best cornerback in all football, the reigning defensive player of the year.
Well, he was till Parker exposed him. That's what
he played very well against him. So, of course, he would say, well, I'd rather do that because he played well. I don't understand the beef aspect here. Like, I guess he shouldn't have Michael Thomas's name in his mouth, is what Michael Thomas was saying. Like,
he didn't, though, Luby. He wrote the letter A on the post. That was it. He didn't say, Michael Thomas sucks. Stephon Gilmore's great.
Like, I don't get this. Like, to me, this isn't a Nas Jay-Z beef where they both could fake a claim. They both were legendary rappers already at the time. Like, I don't understand this beef. Like, for Michael Thomas, why do you care what Devontae Parker says? You're widely considered a top 3 receiver. Some consider you the best receiver in football. Devontae Parker was a first-round bust until halfway through the year when Brandon Kravitz's belief in him rose him to being
a fantasy star. Just go ahead and say it.
But, like, I don't understand this. Like, I don't get the, I guess I can switch. I think the beef is stupid. Like, I don't get the point of the beef. Parker was just talking from experience, and Michael Thomas shouldn't care. Like, you just got paid, man. Like, why do you care about Devontae Parker?
I have one more great question queued up. It has nothing to do with the Dolphins, but Zach, do you have anything left before I close it down with this dude?
No, I got to hear this great question. He says, as if there's been multiple. Okay.
I will save the best for last. So we just got done watching the Last Dance documentary detailing the life and times of Michael Jordan, and there's a unique fact of teams out there that have put Jordan's name in the rafters and retired his jersey that he never even played for. I mean, I think that you could probably win a bar bet with the information like this, but and fans in Miami know, the number 23 is retired by the Miami Heat. What's the feeling down there on that? And can you explain to me why that is something that is still done to this day, where Michael Jordan's number 23 is retired by a franchise that he never played for?
It was Riley more, because I don't think it was forever. I think Riley did that. I'm not going to lie down here. We're not happy about it. Like, first of all, Marino's number's up there, and I get Marino is one of the quintessential icons of South Florida sports, but again, he played for the Dolphins, not the Heat, so that's sort of strange. And Jordan's number is in the rafters. He killed us, so I don't know why we would honor someone who ruined us. And he didn't play for our franchise. Down here, if you ask South Florida fans, they're not happy about it. If Riley did, I guess Riley has ultimate respect for Michael Jordan, so it's paying homage. I mean, I guess maybe you could paint a mural or have a picture in like your office or something. I don't know. I never got that. It is point of contention for South Florida fans. We're not happy about it. And it's something that Deepo and I have talked about on our show, that we love Pat Riley. He's one of the untouchables when it comes to South Florida sports icons. But that's, I think, a misstep on his part, because I don't understand why you would do that. Like, why would you have another player's great player, the best player ever, in your rafters? Like, he never wore a Heat jersey ever.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't get it. I love Jordan, but that one always confused me. Maybe if they get a player that's good enough that he can take the 23 down from the rafters. Michael Lubitz, your name will never be taken down from the rafters. 940 WINZ Miami Sports, 6 to 10 a.m. on the Defo Show. Luby, we'll catch up with you on Friday. More Devontae Parker talk.
Hey, Parker. All right, guys. Be well. Talk to you Friday.
Coast to Coast is next.
Rain or shine, these guys have you covered. Now back to the Sunshine State Showdown with Brandon Kravitz and Zac Blobner.
Sports fans, thanks for listening to the Sunshine State Showdown, airing all across the beautiful Sunshine State, Orlando, Miami, Jacksonville, you name it. Zach and I have you covered. Ask yourself this question. If I told you that two of the best players in the NBA were going to go one-on-one on pay-per-view, how much would you be willing to spend on it? Do you have a dollar amount, Zach, where you would have in your mind if it was Giannis versus LeBron or something like that, and they were to play one-on-one pay-per-view?
We're talking like pickup basketball, not horse, right? Because I did not enjoy the horse stuff.
Like game to 21, like same thing you do in your driveway.
In the current state of sports, because it's a pandemic, I would drop, personally, I'd throw a 20 on it, 25.
Wow. So inflation has not been apparently inflation has not worked for the one-on-one game.
Now, if you gave me a tournament and it was like them and then the winner plays the winner of another one-on-one, 1v1, I'd pay a little bit more. Now, again, that doesn't mean that if it's a pay-per-view, you're kicking in 20. So if there's 5 of you and it's 100, you're good.
No, they can't charge 100. Back in 1995, it was called The War on the Floor, which, by the way, what a great name that is. Shaquille O'Neal had challenged Hakeem Olajuwon to a one-on-one matchup after the 1995 finals where the two played one another, and Hakeem dominated Shaq. and the Rockets beat the Magic, and the first time that franchise would make it to the NBA Finals. And so Shaq wanted redemption, and he challenged Hakeem to one-on-one, and it was effectively shut down. There's speculation that it was done because of the union, whatever, but the reason that you were given in 1995 was because Hakeem Olajuwon suffered a chest injury while lifting weights. But this was 1995 at the time. I'm not saying it was the year, but it was also the price. $19.95. So you're saying you'd spend 20 today. They were charging 20 for this back in 1995. And so I actually looked at the banner for this. The number to call to order the pay-per-view was 1-800-795-3360. So I decided to go ahead in 2020 to give it a call, and it's some like vacation timeshare rental now. So you can actually call that number. It's just you can't order Shaq versus Hakeem Olajuwon on it. Thought you'd like to know that.
I would love to call that number, and I'm sure that they'd offer a very good price on a cabana in Maui. And all I have to do is tell my social security, my mother's maiden name, and just sell my soul basically for this pipe dream. No, that's funny. I was going to actually ask you if you had called it, so I'm glad you did, man.
Yeah, man.
You go down the rabbit hole of the Wizards with Jordan. Now you're calling numbers from the Dream versus Shaq. I love it.
Yeah, I listened to an hour of Ryan Fitzpatrick on a bad podcast. I mean, yeah,
what a day for you, Brandon. Was this yesterday? Before the show?
This is just how I live my life, man. My life is show prep, okay? And that's where there's another wrinkle to this. Not only did I do extensive research on Shaq versus Hakeem 1995, Zach, I found the commercial. Listen to this.
Oh, man.
It will be the heavyweight battle of the year. Shaquille O'Neal, Hakeem Olajuwon, one-on-one. 10 rounds, $1 million. Shaq, Hakeem, one-on-one. Saturday, September 30th, live on pay-per-view.
Be there September 30th.
Was that
what was that last part?
No, that last part was 1990s editing. That's what that was. I think that was Shaq dunking 3 times.
It sounded like Street Fighter. oh. Like that's I was waiting for it. What a weird promo.
I know.
Here's what I got so many questions. They said 10 rounds.
Yeah.
Of what?
I don't know.
Are we talking like first to 10? Are they doing like a horse and then free throw and then one? Like, do they have 10 rounds of different events? I have a lot of questions, but it certainly did sound intriguing. And think about back then too, Brandon, just how much more popular boxing was and even wrestling. So you bring in the idealism of a heavyweight bout. That's going to get a lot of eyes and attention outside of the NBA world too.
Yeah, and it surprises me. I'm assuming that this would have worked the way that you and I would play one-on-one. Take the ball at the half court, take the ball at the top of the key, you try and dribble and juke around your opponent and, either get a good shot up or drive in for a layup, or for them, it would definitely be a dunk. But if that's the way that it worked, I don't see how Shaquille O'Neal would be successful in this situation. They would have to start on the block for him to even have a chance. And even there, Hakeem at that time in 95 was dominant over Shaquille O'Neal as far as post moves. Shaq was just a huge body that would just muscle you around, but it didn't work on the Dream. If they're taking the ball at the top of the key, I can't imagine Shaq dribbling, trying to like dribble through his legs and juke Hakeem out of his shoes. Hakeem was much more athletic as far as like his ability to move side to side and his dribbling skills. I just don't understand how Shaq thought if they went one-on-one, he was going to win. I don't get it. I don't. He would have been embarrassed again.
Especially coming off the finals, like you said, where he was dominated. It wasn't even like he was, coming out of a place where maybe he was a little banged up and he's like, look, I was hurt. It would have been different. Like, you just straight up didn't play as well as the other guy. The other guy was better than you. I will say this, though, as cool as it sounds and as much fun as we have, like reminiscing on what could have been, I don't know how much one-on-one pickup basketball you've seen at the gym or, out in street ball and stuff. It's not very fun to watch. Like,
it would be with them, though.
Yo, you give me like white man can't jump. I'll watch 2-on-2 matchups all day.
Yeah, much better.
But one-on-one, it's like, it's tough to get behind something like that, man, because it just gets so old so quick. because either A, you need them both to be equal, right? Like if one guy's dominating, it's no fun at all to watch. At least 2v2, there's enough, bodies moving around that it could be closer than the talent level is when it comes to the score.
I just wonder why we haven't seen this since. And I don't think this was sanctioned by the NBA, but I don't know why the NBA hasn't put something like this on, because people were clearly clamoring for it in 1995, and I think they would today. So you can tweet at us, which one-on-one would you like to see with today's players? At Brandon Kravitz, at Zach on the mic. Michael Lubitz on Ryan Fitzpatrick's comments about mentoring Tua. That's next.
Coast to coast and throws it down.
Closing the show out in style. Coast to Coast brought to you by Visit KeepFloridaGoing.com. That's KeepFloridaGoing.com. Let's kick it over to the Bay. Zac Blobner standing by.
Oh, man, I got a mouthful from Jalen Rose. And basically he said that Jimmy Butler was the most underappreciated player in the NBA. And he went on to explain how, think about it, Jimmy Butler leaves the guys in Philly and they get worse. He leaves the guys in Minnesota and they get worse. The guys in Chicago and they get worse. But every team he goes to gets better. And that's, proof of how good Jimmy is as a teammate. A lot of the Heat players have said that his leadership during a pandemic has even shown that more so. Is Jimmy Butler the most underrated player in the league?
I'm willing to say that. Yeah, I think he has an incredible impact on the guys that are around him. I mean, look at what he's done with the Miami Heat. They've become one of the better teams in the NBA, and he's the number one reason why. You've got Spoelstra's done a great job with that unit, and some other players have stepped up, but he's the star. He's the only superstar on that team, and everywhere he goes, they at least succeed to some degree. I think that Jimmy Butler, honestly, he's a lot like Michael Jordan in the way that he approaches the game. He's grading on his teammates. He's a lot to handle, and I don't think it's received well in today's day and age. And I think it's a good glimpse into the way maybe MJ would be perceived by teammates in 2020.
We almost had a solid window of MVP Derrick Rose and Jimmy Butler in Chicago. Almost.
Yep. We were robbed.
Heartbreaking. Very much so. Fansided.com says Markelle Fultz is only a jump shot away from being the clear-cut future of the Orlando Magic. True or false, Brandon?
That is absolutely true. If that guy developed a lethal jump shot, his handles are ridiculous. He's good enough defensively to get by. But in today's NBA, if you're outstanding on offense, then you can kind of get by. Look at Steph Curry. He's not an elite defender. He's a great passer. He's a great ball handler. If he could shoot, he would be one of the best point guards in the NBA. The problem is that right now he can't shoot at all, and so that really holds him back.
How many guys like that are in the league right now? Ben Simmons, we make fun of his shooting. Lonzo Ball, great passer if he can only shoot better. It's just funny how many dudes were like, yeah, if they could only knock down more shots, they'd be better. Like, obviously.
I know, and it's crazy because these guys are professional basketball players.
You would think it's like,
players. Get a hoop and a ball and make it happen, man. It's a hard thing to do. It's a lot harder than we give it credit for, obviously.
It's crazy to me. Former Lightning defenseman Radko Gudas now plays for the Capitals and says it's time for the NHL to cancel their season. Is he right?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think if the NBA feels comfortable getting geared up, if Major League Baseball is going to do it eventually, if they can get over their labor issues, then why not the NHL? There's enough places. This country is very big. There are cities out there that are clamoring to add this sort of exposure to their economy. So if the NBA could go one place, NHL could go another. I don't think they need to cancel. Not yet.
All right, last one for you. I'll give you an easy one. Just generally, where does the Dolphins QB room rank in the NFL? Rosen, Fitzpatrick, and Tua. Where would you throw them in there?
I love Tua. I think he's going to be really good. But as of right now, I would have that ranked towards the bottom of the NFL.
Wow.
Bottom quarter of the NFL, no doubt. Until I see how good Tua should be. It pains me to say that. Why would you even put me in that position? I hate you for it, Zach. You know what? We're going to have to leave now. We'll be back tomorrow. He's Zac Blobner. I'm Brandon Kravitz. Download the podcast, Sunshine State Showdown, on iHeartRadio. We're back tomorrow at 5, friends.